The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Faster by, good afternoon. Welcome to Mannin Line on Manx Radio. Can't believe it's the last bank holiday before Christmas now. I know. Where's 2023 gone? Can't believe it. A week next Wednesday, the schools go back. Wednesday, the 6th of September. And it's 8 weeks ago yesterday, 7 weeks next Thursday, that single-use plastic's going to be outlawed in the Isle of Man. Thursday, the 19th of October. Wow. And 9 weeks on Sunday, the clocks go back. And shortly after that, it's Hop Tune Air. I know, time only moves one way, doesn't it? Doctor's appointments on the Isle of Man are a disgrace, says Jack. Manx Care seems to have made things worse. I called for an appointment in Laxey yesterday, early October. Surely people shouldn't have to call every day and make an emergency appointment like your texter said yesterday. Surely we can get this sorted out. My son had a... no, what are we talking about? Oh, sorry, this GP situation. They've got the message from the guy in Peel yesterday who said there were no appointments available. The September rota hadn't been agreed even yesterday. And I would want to raise the point of traffic wardens taking photos of cars that they issue tickets on. Is this legal? What do they do with the photos, says Mike. Another GDPR issue, is that? Well, traffic wardens do take photos, and of course that's how they get the evidence that cars are parked illegally. I wonder, Isle of Man government should tell us how much electricity is forecast to cost per kilowatt hour post the green aims. Then we can make an informed decision about our future. It's all down to how much it's going to cost, isn't it? How much our electricity will cost in the future. Saw some interesting calculations regarding solar power and also regarding wind power on the Isle of Man. Of course, next Tuesday is the big night. There's a meeting in Ballabeg talking about the southern wind farm, the potential of the southern wind farm. It's solar power. But we need clean skies for it to operate efficiently as well. So how do we get that? How do we get the clean? Well, they're fairly clean at the moment, aren't they? I was talking yesterday about this pandemic, this strain of COVID apparently is here, there and everywhere. Des says, Andy, the second pandemic is coming because they can't lock Trump up. What? Sorry, I didn't quite make the connection. Des, if you could tell me what the connection is. With a new man-made virus, they can steal the election. Right, okay. Sorry, you lost me along the way there, Des, but if you can give me that in words of one syllable, that'll be great. Howard's with us now. Hi, Howard.
Hello, Andy. Just a little gripe or usual moan. Yesterday afternoon, after the practice, and the roads opened at, I think it was 4 o'clock, around about that anyway. And just when the traffic was beginning to move and people leaving their offices, perhaps a little bit earlier, and of course people moving around in general down Douglas, some genius decided to open the lifting bridge, which is a main thoroughfare into Douglas, coming from the south. Lord Street was gridlocked. The promenade area around the sea terminal was gridlocked. And when we finally got through, traffic was backed up to the White Hole. And all this was just to let two little toy yachts go back up into the marina. So they know full well, they obviously knew. I know they're covered by tide flow, etc., the tide in there, but surely to goodness that they must have known these yachts were about and informed them that there's only a window where they can, open the bridge, and Douglas is exceptionally busy at that time. So they just, possibly have to sit and wait for another short while.
It was nothing short of a nightmare in Douglas yesterday. I know everything was backed up absolutely everywhere. That's why I think they kind of hurried to get the roads open about 10,
right.
quarter past 4 yesterday.
Well, that was what they were doing, and as I say, the roads were opened and traffic started to move again, and then some genius took up the Lifton Bridge, and traffic then was gridlocked. There was no buses, wagons, cars, bikes, anything. I got stopped down by the bus station. I was in no rush to go anywhere, but God help it, if it had been an ambulance or fire or police, anything like that, it would have been, not a disaster, but it would have been, not very helpful to anybody. So some genius down there in the DOI, again, and the Harbour Board have decided, let these two, because I could see them going up the harbour, and you see the masts going up through, and they must have been sitting waiting to go up through for the tide, and then they decided to cut all the traffic off and block Douglas off in the period where they had movement on the roads to allow traffic to move freely. So some genius down there is obviously not reading the newspapers and know that the roads were open.
Well, obviously somebody decided to make that judgment and let the two yachts through, which of course they're perfectly entitled to, but as you say, with the weight of traffic that was around then, you just wonder, I wonder who made the decision.
Yeah, but also if you turn it round, the roads are closed, the traffic couldn't move on those roads, so common sense is, there's going to be a mad rush about 4 o'clock when they open. I'm sorry, Mr. Yachty, but I'm afraid this is a major road here, and there's going to be an awful lot of traffic coming in from the south, in down Lord Street, off the promenade. There was nothing moving, they couldn't go across that. But okay, it wasn't for an awful long time, but it certainly snarled things up, and it just means that common sense wasn't being used.
Joined up thinking and all that, Howard.
Well, that's something the government have found impossible to administer. So that's my gripe over.
All right, Howard,
Anybody else was caught up in it, my sympathies. Take care.
All right, thanks for that. Have a good weekend, Howard. Thanks for that. Did you get caught up in the traffic yesterday? It was a fair old nightmare. It was pandemonium around Douglas yesterday. Everything was jammed, and as Howard said, by putting the bridge up, didn't really help. Well, it helped the two yachts, of course. It's been confirmed, by the way, the MGP qualifiers and first schedule race going ahead today. Everything is going ahead after poor weather conditions threw them into question. Roads around the circuit closing in the next 30 minutes ahead of the first qualifying session at 1 o'clock today. So the roads will be closed about 12:30, 15, 20 minutes odd time. So just be aware of that. Everything is going ahead. The qualifiers and the first schedule race going ahead. The weather seems to be coming and going. Let's hope it's more going than coming. Here's a photo of the footpath yesterday at Bradda Head. The potential for fires on the island is not limited to Bradda, however. Have other footpaths around the island been cut back to the recommended standards laid out in the University of Edinburgh's Bradda report? This was the 2003 Bradda Head fire. Big fire. I mean, it took a lot of fire engines and fire people to get the whole thing out. And there was a report afterwards by the University of Edinburgh. However, it did stress, cutting back and clearing paths. And thank you for the photo of the path that's been sent in. It is fairly well overgrown. So what do we do? If there's a report that says you need to cut the paths back because it will create a fire break, and the paths aren't cut back, now I'm not tempting Providence, but if anything happens, who do you blame then? Global warming? People for not cutting paths back? The people who wrote the report? The person who threw a cigarette down? What do you do? Thanks for the note in. There are many of them in today so far concerning, concerning, well, this one concerns more doctor's appointments. This time, this one's in Ramsey. Still can't get an appointment in Ramsey. Crikey. There are famous people in Ramsey. You should be able to get an appointment there. Text, email, call and WhatsApp if you want to get in touch. And no information for us at the moment. Your news website says the roads will be closing at 11:30. It's 12:15 now. Can somebody let us know what's going on? Yes, they're going ahead. Thanks for that. Text to 490. We just have to wait to get the information. The biggest mistake is the cycle lane on Paul Rose Bridge. Traffic yesterday was horrendous. Needs to be put back to 2 lanes and the cycle lane reduced. It all gets driven into sharp focus, doesn't it, when the roads are closed? Somebody was saying there was a small Isle of Man bus, Mannin bus, that was holding stuff up by the bridge yesterday on the access road. Why did the Isle of Man get involved in the Paris Agreement? We're a dot in the ocean, not part of the UK. We're involved in this global con, says this texter. I'm taking it you don't buy into the global agenda then. Regarding having 2 same-sex parents on someone's birth certificate, what if the child doesn't want that later on in life for personal reasons, says Don on 505. Anybody who thinks, says John M., that wind turbines will lower bills needs to give their head a wobble. Haven't heard that expression for a while. Anybody is allowed to take photographs of anything in public, including cars, buildings, or people or buildings, even police vehicles. Look at various bloggers, says Pammy. Yes, you can. If something is on a public road or from public view, you can take a photo of it. So presumably that will negate any GDPR problems. This was the question about traffic wardens taking photos of cars. You mentioned the lack of a raft at Laxey Beach yesterday. Sadly, that's not all that's up to scratch. I was down there yesterday afternoon, and the toilets on the quayside are disgusting. Look as though they haven't been cleaned in months. The hand wash sink is thick with baked-on grime, and the walls and ceilings haven't had a good clean in years, judging by the cobwebs and the grime. And the new seating on the flooring in the public shelter was a disgrace. I thought the commissioners had employed a contract cleaner to keep it all clean in Laxey. The middle of summer, beach full of tourists, and that's what they're confronted with. It doesn't show Laxey or the Isle of Man in a good light, really, does it? We've got a caller on one. Oh, it's Ian. Sorry, hi, Ian.
Good morning, Andy. Just a quick question, if anybody out there knows the answer. For the second day or second morning running, Peel Power Station's running. It would appear to be running on all 4 engines at the moment. Is there a problem in Douglas, or are they anticipating when we've all switched to air source heat pumps that bringing the station back on full time?
I think, isn't Peel mothballed? So maybe they're just firing it up just to make sure it's still working.
Well, usually in the past they've sort of just run up 1 or 2 and cycled it round, but I'm quite amazed to see all 4 going at once, because generally it didn't have all 4 going at once when it was running before the new power station.
How much of a noise is it making?
I can't hear anything.
Oh, I see.
No, I'm not. No, it's not that I'm deaf. I'm inside a property. When I went out before, I couldn't hear it, but I'm a good 400-500 yards away.
I wonder. Okay, well, if anybody knows, they can get in touch with us today. What's the weather like in Peel, Ian?
Some cloud, but mainly sunny.
Good. Okay. All right. Thanks for being with us, Ian.
Bye now.
All right. That's the situation. Why is Peel Power Station all fired up and running? Nice to know we're mitigating things for the future, isn't it? Penny dropped a line in also earlier on this week and said, Andy, when you were talking about the Ipcris file, I thought you were joking about it being shot in Liverpool, so I took the chance to watch it. This is the remake of the Ipcris file, and you were saying that it was shot in Liverpool because they put money into it. And at the end of it, it does give a credit for the Liverpool Film Office. This is really down to the fact that we don't have films and TV series on the Isle of Man, and obviously financial incentives have to be put to the production companies. Liverpool Film Office recently spent £1.8 million creating 2 budget film studios in the city, which generated £12.5 million with local spend in the first year of operation. They calculate, who spends what and how much they spend. Now, as a result of this, there's going to be a massive expansion in this area of investment in Liverpool, and Liverpool also wanted to make a partner as well, the Isle of Man, a partner for the production landscape in the northwest. Liverpool are sold out for production in the next 2 years with this budget film studio. And they want to partner with the Isle of Man. The Flix Animation of Manchester, of course, based in the Isle of Man, has produced highly commended children's series. They've got further series in the pipeline. This is Flix in the island, employing young talent and building their skills and experience. Now, the Manx government were able to assist in providing support for the series, which yielded significant results. Now, there are companies on the Isle of Man that have international reputations. Of course, the big one is Greenlight Television, do all the motorsport stuff. They're on television every week all around the world, and do the TT stuff as well. They've got an international reputation in high-quality motorsports television production, so it would be a step forward if government and the private sector could form a kind of working group to identify the main opportunities. Now, it is a fact that the media community in the Isle of Man has been invited to partner up with the Liverpool Film Office facilities and do something together. And I mentioned last week, Penny, there's currently a 6-episode television series in development set in Liverpool and the Isle of Man, and a group of island-based investors have funded the development for it. They put the seed corn in, if you like. The production company who will ultimately make the series are AAA-rated UK production company and have received expressions of interest in this series from broadcasters. The series, the story, is set in the Isle of Man. And an amount of the shooting would take place here. It depends really on competitive incentives, and that's really what it's all about. That brings me back to that Liverpool Film Office sticker that's on the back of the IPCRIS file on ITV at the moment, and the fact that we used to have that used to happen all the time, and occasionally, of course, you get odd productions come on television and the Isle of Man film logo will come on the end of it, all down to competitive incentives. And, well, really, that's down to the Department for Enterprise, really, what they can offer. Anybody wanting to make some films or television based on the Isle of Man. I won't be talking to Tim Crookall about that in a couple of weeks' time. Tim is political member for tourism, if you like, Visit Isle of Man in Department for Enterprise. And Deborah Heather, who's the chief exec of Visit Isle of Man, are going to be on talking about tourism on the Isle of Man and exactly what we can do for tourism. If we're aiming to get up to half a million visitors or so every year, what do we do about it? Now, more to the point, and this is concerning traffic on the Isle of Man, Anne Corlett, the Douglas Central MHK, says that a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit should be implemented around the city of Douglas now. Absolutely now, after a public consultation showed most people are in favour of a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. Nearly 600 people responded to the proposals, which also included improving road safety around the residential areas and also around Ballacameen High School. Despite the positive responses, the Living Street scheme is still subject to funding. But Department for Infrastructure say it's hoped that design work will take place later on this year. Anne Corlett says, actually, it could happen right now.
That's a really good response to a consultation. To be honest, I don't always have confidence in consultation responses and results. For me, it's a fundamentally flawed system in that, you don't even know a consultation's going on, and if you do, you've got to find it on the hub. It's quite laborious to fill it in. And the other side of it is we can maybe 30 respondents and off we go and make policy on the back of that. I don't always think it's the best thing. But I do have confidence in this particular consultation response because I've been round, I've knocked doors, I've talked to people, and the results of that consultation are pretty much the exchange I got on the doorsteps.
The 77%, I believe it was, who say they would be in favour of 20 miles per hour zones. Why do you think this scheme is needed?
I'm hoping what will come out of this is they will implement a 20 mile an hour zone, because that's not terribly expensive. You just need signage at the entrance to the zones, maybe some repeater signing on the road. The other questions that were responded to in a yes way were, of course, drop curbs, upgrading where we're walking, and I absolutely understand that. I think it was the major thing when we knocked on doors at the last election was, the state of the streets, the state of the roads. So I think that's probably something for a bigger area, and it would be expensive. So I'm not expecting them, particularly with the state of finances at the moment, to say they're going to do that. So what I really want to get from this is a 20 mile an hour zone.
And in terms of that funding then, at the bottom of this 52-page report, it's a subject to funding. In terms of timescale and whether or not this project actually gets off the ground, how confident are you?
Well, this is a pilot scheme, so they could run it for 12 months. It would be better to implement the 20 and then address any problems that occur from it, rather than trying to preempt them where you don't really know where they're going to occur. I think let's get started. Let's get the signs up. Let's get the speed down, and we can work on from there.
If you live around that area, around Ballacameen and the Ballabruey, Alexander Drive, that sort of area, what are your thoughts on that? They were talking about Alexander Drive being 30 anyway, isn't it? And 20 miles an hour around then. Just wonder what your thoughts are regarding that whole scheme, and call it start of that, the 20 is plenty scheme. Is it time to do it right now, do you think? Just a quick reminder, there was a fire last weekend around Blue Point, so remember, no lighting fires in the airs. It is forbidden. Anybody who wants to take a portable barbecue, don't take it to the airs. There was a fire inland away from the shoreline at Blue Point last week, but please, it is forbidden for that. And more, no, I don't think the raft has been fixed in Laxey. Many mentions of the raft in Laxey.
From our castles to our cottages, our museums, and the Great Laxey Wheel. You'll find hidden treasures around every corner when you visit a Manx National Heritage Site. Fill your summer making treasured memories with Manx National Heritage. Sites now open every day. By visiting, you help protect our treasured island for generations to come. Plan your visit today at manxnationalheritage.im.
TGI Fridays, Harry Ramsden's, Greg's, Chiquito. They're each loved for food and enjoyment. And now they've all teamed up with Iceland to bring their famous food direct to you. Piccolino, My Protein and many more, all in one place. Shop right, so anytime you're craving for what makes them famous, we can help. No defrost, no prep, no waste. Straight from the freezer into the oven. And all at great prices. New exclusive brands. Only at ShopRite. Proudly locally owned.
I began to struggle with the stairs, but I didn't want to leave our family home. So my daughter told me about Acorn Stair Lifts and their new showroom in Douglas. I was able to try the stair lifts and find the right one for me and the home I love. They were so friendly. The whole process was hassle-free and they offered the whole package from installation to servicing. Choose the island's first choice for stair lifts. Acorn Stair Lifts, South Quay, Douglas.
Call Acorn Stair Lifts now on 672 414 or call into our Douglas showroom.
On Saturday the 26th of August, join our Station Legends train to celebrate Fleetwood Mac's greatest hits. At just £49 per person, the Fleetwood Mac Dreams experience includes train travel, 3-course meal, and of course a huge array of hits. Find out more at rail.im or book now on 697 457. Fleetwood Mac Dreams, in association with your Nation Station. Manx Radio.
Ever pondered on the future of Manx politics? Well, Junior Tynwald is of the opinion that the transport and communication infrastructure of the island does not meet the population's needs. And also, Junior Tynwald is of the opinion that school meals should be provided to more of the student population in the light of the cost of living crisis. Find out why on Perspective this Sunday at 12 noon on Manx Radio with me, Phil Gaughan. Engaging, tenacious, passionate, a breath of fresh air. No, this will never do. Bring back boring old Senior Tynwald.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
29 minutes before 1. Got a note in from Kieran who just says, Andy, I've been looking at some statistics. Oh, we love statistics. The Statistical Review for World Energy report. The demand for fossil fuels has remained steady last year. The report says 82% of all energy used, despite growth in some renewables. Energy demand increased globally by 1%, although it dipped in Europe. Renewables, except hydropower, accounted for 7.5% of global energy consumption. Renewable power grew by 14%. Coal accounted for 35.4% of energy generation. Oil production grew by 3.8 million barrels a day to 97.3 million barrels a day last year. And OPEC, that's the Organisation of Oil Exporting Countries, says it expects global oil demand to jump to 110 barrels a day in 2045. Well, these are just their predictions. The International Energy Agency sees annual demand growth decreasing from 2.4 million barrels per day in 2023 to 400,000 barrels per day in 2028. Coal production and consumption rose last year in Europe by 5% and 2% respectively. So it's 5% production, 2% consumption. Germany accounted for 44% of all EU lignite production. That's the type of coal burnt for power generation. Benchmark prices for natural gas in Europe were up 10% because of that was a while ago after the insurrection in Russia a wee while ago. So there are so many statistics, you have to kind of pick your way through it as to where we're actually going and what our future is on the Isle of Man. Oh, Julian's on now. Hi, Julian.
Hi, Andy. Just wanted to comment on a couple of comments yesterday. I thought Ralph, I particularly agree with him talking about geothermal. I thought he was very, very well said what he said and very clear. I thought it was very good. I also agree with everything that Dewan said, including about ivermectin, especially about the fact that it was repurposed for animals 4 years after being licensed for humans under the brand name Stramectol. But you also read out a message a little bit later from a listener called Peter who said a BBC Science programme had debunked ivermectin. There's 2 points come to mind. The first is currently, at the moment, there are around 100 independent randomised controlled trials of ivermectin across 28 countries, 1,065 scientists and 138,000 patients that found that viral load in people using ivermectin was reduced by 96% with an 84% reduction in hospitalisation, especially if taken early. Like so many other medicines, it's always better to take it when you first feel the scratch. But the other point is, to this day, the COVID vaccines from Pfizer, Moderna, Johnson & Johnson and AstraZeneca have had 0 independent clinical trials, despite their own figures showing that the absolute risk reduction is only 0.84%, less than 1% efficacy. Why hasn't the BBC said anything about that?
Well, you'd have to ask the BBC. Why would you think?
Well, you'd have to look at their sponsorship, I suppose. It makes quite interesting reading when you look. If you connect the dots, it's quite interesting, and especially certain board members. It's not just the BBC. I noticed that James Smith, who's the CEO of Reuters, which a lot of news gatherers use, is also a senior board member of Pfizer, which sounds like a conflict of interest, but who knows? Perhaps he's able to compartmentalise his brain, perhaps.
So, where the implication of this is what, Julian? What conclusion do you draw?
Well, if you look at aspirin or any of these drugs, they were always repurposed for other things, especially once they were out of patent, which ivermectin's been off for a long time, which is why prior to COVID it was 10 cents a tablet, whereas since then it seems to have climbed to about I think it's $500 for a 20-pill box. I think it's coming down again now since the FDA did actually have to change their tack when those 3 doctors did a class action against them. So it's interesting. Why did the price go up so high? It's interesting. You know, there has to be a demand to get that price up. So that sort of infers that there's some utility to ivermectin, but anyway, at least in theory, it should bring the price down at some point soon, hopefully.
Interestingly, I was just noting it was in Malaysia, I think. The Court of Appeal in Malaysia upheld the right and autonomy of doctors to dispense ivermectin or any other medicine to treat patients, even if it goes against the health ministry prohibition over there. So, and again, my I've said it many times, Julian, my search is to find out what it means to the layperson, what the person in the street gets from all this. So, you know, we trust and we vote in politicians and we have public servants to act on our behalf and to do things. The first duty of any government is to protect the population. So kind of implicit in that is that the population will believe what the government says and believe that the government is acting in their interests.
Yeah, I also noticed, the name escapes me at the moment, but I can always come back on again when I remember. A Cambridge University virologist is saying that the new EG5, which is interesting because that's 5GE if you say it backwards. I don't know why. It just struck me that it was slightly strange that 5G was in the EG5 variant of this COVID. He's saying that it is no more transmissible and no worse than the current Omicron ones, which is, of course, the ones that eased everyone off. So I think he's the top virologist at Cambridge, but his name escapes me just at the second. I only read it last night, which is good news, I would say.
Would you be bothered, Julian, if COVID blew up again, if a new variant of COVID was as widespread as the last one? How would that strike you?
Well, I'm quite happy because I've actually taken the step to check my vitamin D blood levels and got them optimized. Whereas a lot of people are either poo-pooing it, but actually I think there's an awful lot of people on the island who actually don't know what their vitamin D levels are. And if you don't know what those levels are, I mean, I spoke to a doctor who said that every single person that came in and asked him, they were all too low, and they all ended up having to be supplemented. So prevention's better than cure.
And how do you know your vitamin? Who do you ask to find out your vitamin D level?
Well, the thing is, I know it's been removed from the standard blood test when you go up to the blood clinic. So I think there needs to be some pressure applied to actually get that back on, because I think about 8 years ago it was on it. The other thing is, I believe there's a place in Douglas, an independent place that you can go. I think it's about £50 to get it checked, which is a bit on the expensive side. But then again, how much value do you put on your health? You know, vitamin D doesn't just stop COVID. There's everything from arthritis. Apparently there's a 90% reduction in quite a lot of cancers if you get your vitamin D levels up to the right point, and that's across millions of studies. However, it seems that most people don't know what their vitamin D levels are, and if anybody gets their print off of their blood test the next time they're at the blood clinic, just see vitamin D's listed. I very much doubt if it is, and it's one that you need to know.
Okay, all right, Julian, thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Andy. Cheers.
I appreciate that. I got a note in from, it's a WhatsApper on 566 just sending me a screenshot of the available appointments, Peel doctor appointments for September. There's one appointment available in Peel on Thursday the 14th of September, Monday the 18th, 12 available, and Monday the 25th there are 10 available. That's how it is there as well. Can you tell me who to speak to about car alarms that are going off in King Edward Park? The owner gets really aggressive about it, so it won't do anything. It keeps just going off. What do you do about car alarms? Can you report that? I'm assuming police for that if a car alarm is continually going off. and it's a note in is the other side of ivermectin. Steve just said, as per my message yesterday, the point about ivermectin, I think, was misinformation. While everybody's got the right to have their opinion, look at what happened in the US Capitol. Although not fully the fault of Manx Radio. Thank you as well. Thank you, Steve. Yes, by all means, you can give us a call if you want about that. Sadly, I can't read out web links on the air. But by all means, if there's something you want to say, and again, this cuts really to the chase. You may hear opinions you don't like on Mannin Line. You may hear opinions from people who you disagree with, and that's the point of it. Everybody has an opinion. This is about giving people the opportunity to say their opinion. You can draw your own conclusions. Nobody is ever saying that this is the final word. I mean, apart from telling you the laws of physics, how much is complete truth nowadays anyway? A note in also says, it was Pam who just said, I heard that woman talking about dropped curbs yesterday. Yeah, it was a lady who lived in Pulrose and contacted the DOI and police regarding vehicles illegally parking and blocking dropped curbs between Pulrose shops and Heather Crescent. She said that the DOI have done nothing about it. They've asked the department to increase patrols and police as well, because people are blocking dropped curbs and no action has been taken. It really affects wheelchair users, and it was a note in also to say that is happening, and it was where? Was it in? Oh, Williston as well. So thanks for that note. Good to hear from you. And more questions to answer in just a few moments' time, but let's just get to... let's have a look here. Some more emails to get to. I think the emails are here. It may be MGP that's blocking it. It's on, by the way. MGP is absolutely on, so that's good as well. I know 3 years is a long time. The 2020 USA elections were won by fraud, says Des. I can't see what that's got to do with the Isle of Man, Des, but if you can join it together for me as to how much we're really bothered about Donald Trump on the Isle of Man, we'll try and keep Mannin Line to what's happening on the Isle of Man. We need to avoid the TV and film industry, says friend. The last venture, if you remember, lost the taxpayer £26 million that were never accounted for. Is that so? Didn't they make a lot of money, though, on the Pinewood investment? Why should a car have a right-of-way over boats? Says Texter 025. This was a situation in Douglas yesterday, which was jam-packed, absolutely jam-packed, and really it was everything was locked into Douglas, and then they opened the swing bridge to let 2 yachts through. I'm all for yachts having right-of-way, but really there were lots and lots and lots of cars and just 2 yachts. Could they have waited? How many people who are in favour of a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit drive a motor vehicle, says David S.
Welcome to the Ramsey Park Hotel, where there's always a warm welcome and something to enjoy. Nestling beside Muirrook Lake with sea views towards Cumbria, the Ramsey Park Hotel is a stunning destination for your staycation. Take advantage of a fabulous 2-night stay with a glass of champagne on arrival, dinner for 2 nights accommodation and breakfast, all for just £290. For more news on food, offers and events, call 818-123 or visit the Ramsey Park Hotel on Facebook.
Are you a reluctant landlord, tired of tenant hassles, cursed by constant maintenance, tormented by empty properties producing no rent? Want to escape these worries or get out altogether?
At Prime Lettings, we understand your pain and have bespoke solutions to release you from these problems. Ring us on 616-707 for a free confidential chat.
Prime Lettings. We're on call and on the ball at 616-707.
Want to make a real difference to your home or workplace energy bills? The team at EMS Home Green have 30 years' experience supplying and installing solar power and thermal systems, air and ground source heat pumps, and battery storage. A complete one-stop eco-shop, finding practical solutions to help you save money from day one. Call 613-210 or visit ems.co.im to arrange your no-obligation survey. EMS Home Green, for your greener home.
Andy Mack, Kelly's Eye. The best of the Castlereagh line. No wonder it was only half a side of C60.
All right, Ruth.
Yeah, hi, H. Hang on a second. Yes! This is it!
Can't find your favourite 80s cassette mix?
Then let me do it for you. The 80s mixtape with me, Ruth Shilling, every Sunday from 10 till 12, right here on Manx Radio.
You got the hooters.
Mind your own business.
The Mannin Line with Andy Wint.
Fast am I. It's 14 minutes before 1. I do understand, says Paula, that many people are frustrated at the length of time they may have to wait to get an appointment for GPs. However, I also believe that some people go to the doctor for things that don't require a face-to-face appointment. I personally love, says Paula, I love the telephone appointment system, and despite the fact that I've a few long-term chronic conditions, I've only asked for a face-to-face appointment once or twice in the past 2 years. Usually a phone appointment is all I've really needed. So if more people accepted this form of appointment, there'd be more face-to-face appointments available for those who really do need a physical or a visual examination. I also think the GP service is seriously underfunded, and most people seem to think that their NI contributions should give them so many benefits: education, hospital, doctors, dentists, social security benefits, pensions. However, the cost of everything is going up, and it's simply not possible to pay for everything from a finite pot of money. Perhaps people will need to make a contribution towards their appointments with GPs in the same way they do make a contribution towards their dental treatment, says Paula. Thank you, Paula. That I can guarantee you that's not the most popular opinion that you will ever hear today, but really a lot of sense in what Paula says. We all want a service from GPs. We want, and sometimes perhaps we're asking for something they can't give. Now, whether or not somebody really comes out and says, look, in the future, you're going to do this will be available, it's going to have to be a telephone appointment. If it's face-to-face, it's really got to be worth it, because you're paying, money is paying for the GP's time. I just wonder how you cut through that, and which politician do you think will be brave enough to say that? The consultation on speed limits was answered by 600 people, 52% in favour. Douglas has about 30,000 residents. It's not a very good argument to do it. Or are people sick of answering government consultations as their view aren't listened to if it's not government policy, says Mike. This is regarding the 20 is plenty survey and putting a 20 mile an hour speed limit within Douglas. I mean, during the daytime, does anybody get above 20 miles an hour on Douglas streets? Certainly the built-up areas. So really, is 20 miles an hour, I mean, you would say, is it really that much of a struggle to do 20 miles an hour? You really don't want to be, lathering down streets at 40 miles an hour that have got cars on both sides, surely. Just a thought. For text, email, call and WhatsApp. Peter's on now. Hi, Peter.
Hi, I'm sorry. I made a phone call yesterday urging your listeners to look at a documentary. I think I gave the wrong name for it. It was Planet of the Humans.
Yes, I think somebody noted that, and they told us that as well, Peter.
Right. Have you ever seen it yourself?
I haven't. No, I haven't. Is it the Michael Moore one?
It is, yeah. I strongly recommend you to watch it. It's all about the climate agenda, who's backing it, and where the money's going.
Okay, all right. Well, we've heard it now, and if anybody wants to watch it, it's on YouTube, presumably, is it?
If you go on Google and Google it, and then it'll come up full documentary, and just press on play.
Okay, all right. Thanks, then.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Have a good weekend. Thanks for being with us. I wonder, says Gemma, what taxes are going to replace fuel duty in the future. i.e. if we're using less fuel for vehicles, if we're going electric, well, they haven't worked out the metric yet, have they, as to where the money's going to come if we have electric vehicles. Sure as anything, it's going to have to come from somewhere, and electric vehicles are a bit heavier than petrol and diesel vehicles, so there will be more damage done to the roads. No. Nobody's mentioned it. Yesterday, I waited nearly 20 minutes at Pulrose Bridge at the traffic lights, and the filter lane has been scrapped to install a cycle lane. All this time, I never saw one bicycle use it, says Ian. That's an often quoted complaint about the Pulrose Bridge and the cycle lane on there. To be approved, vaccines have to have a success rate of 50%. It's a fact, says Richie. So, it will be interesting to hear the DEFA Food Matters team's thoughts about vitamin deficiencies and whether there's a place to use Manx food to uphold health on the Isle of Man. Vitamin D won't stop you catching COVID. It may well help with the severity of the symptoms, but it won't stop illnesses, says 653. It should also be noted that too much vitamin D can be dangerous as well. Who'd have thought it? The Yellow Welly Brigade bringing a gridlock to Douglas yesterday with the 2 yachts going through. I bet they were very popular. The pandemic affects everybody, so what happens in America hits us too, says Desmond. I still don't see the connection between Donald Trump and the Isle of Man, but never mind. I've got to say hi to Julian as well. Another Julian? Oh, the Julian as well. The consultant virologist from Cambridge University is Chris Smith, who says that the new variant is no worse than Omicron as well. There's a notice at Snaefell Surgery stating 448 clients missed their appointments. This must seriously affect booking an appointment, says Big Joe. Well, Manx Care often release the numbers of missed appointments that there have been. So exactly what do you do about that? If somebody misses an appointment, do you think it's time to start charging them? If somebody, has booked an appointment with a GP and they don't turn up, what happens? Comes back the chorus, I tried to cancel it but couldn't get through. And if you only have a finite amount of time between 8 and 9 in the morning, often you can't get through to a GP's surgery to actually cancel the appointment that they've booked for you in the first place. So again, do we solve this with technology or a central cancellation line where you can cancel it? But surely if Snaefell have had 448 appointments booked and paid for, of course they're paid for, what happens? Because the people who do need the appointments can't go, and the GP has lost the time. We should pay doctors. Why should we pay doctors when the World Health Organization are behind most of the ailments with the viruses, vaccines, and the genocide? I would love it if you could provide me some single-syllable proof about this. I know it makes a lovely headline and it's terrific for clickbait, but really, as far as ordinary people are concerned, does that really make sense? The gentleman made a good point about the disabled needing drop curbs, as across they're working on replacing high curbs for way over 20 years, not just for disabled, but prams as well. But here, there's hardly one. But spare a thought for the ridiculous design of some estates where planners and builders squeeze in more houses. And there are no pavements sometimes. People in wheelchairs, children, people with disabilities, mothers with prams, you name it, they all have to walk in the middle of the road where there isn't a pavement. If it's an old village, you can understand, but a brand new estate, it's ridiculous. Dodging traffic, endless vans parked everywhere. You have to walk head on into traffic to get past. It's safer if there are speed humps or 20 miles an hour, but it's not just Douglas that has the problem with this. We have no pavements, no speed bumps, and no 20-mile-an-hour sign on relatively new estate, but highways and commissioners do nothing to help about this. If any road on an estate has no pavements, it should have a 20-mile-an-hour limit, full stop. It should have speed bumps as well as a priority. And really, it's these roads that we should be restricting vans parking first, as it's so dangerous if you're in a wheelchair or if you're slow on your feet. It's too dangerous without pavements, and surely we need a change in the law. So what do you think about this? Well, this goes back to Mr. Robinson, Jeff Robinson's note to the local authorities, where they would recommend certain roads where vehicles over a certain size would be banned from parking. What do you think? Next Friday, Laurie Hooper, MHK, DHSC Minister, and the Children's Champion, Kerry Sharp, MLC, are going to be on. We're talking about adoption, fostering, the rights of children, particularly the ones that are in care, young carers, children with complex needs. If this isn't your world, if it doesn't mean much to you at the moment, I really would recommend you take a listen next Friday. Some issues will be brought to your attention, and Kerry Sharp speaks very, very, very clearly about it. So have a fantastic bank holiday weekend. If you're off to the MGP, enjoy it, and thanks to Howie on the phones today.
WINT